It's Thursday, August 25th, and normally in hurricane season at this time of the year, we'd be talking about at least something brewing in the tropics, but we haven't seen anything or a named storm since the 3rd of July, and that was Colin, and that's even debatable. That was a tropical system. As we look across the tropics, not a lot going on. We are watching a couple of areas. One is this wave of low pressure that's moving across the Windward Islands. Right now, the conditions are not very favorable for development, but as it works its way through the Caribbean here, maybe south of Jamaica and south of Cuba and over towards Central America, there is about a 20% chance of development within the next 5 days. You notice it's not very well organized, hardly any convection or hardly any thunderstorms with it. So that's one area that we're watching. And then just coming off the coast of Africa, there's another wave here just south of the Cabo Verde Islands. That has about a 10% chance of development over the next couple of days, and even that only has a 20% chance of development over the next 5 days to the areas that we're watching. Now, you might be wondering, well, why haven't we seen anything really developing here? And one of the biggest reasons, we've had a drought here like we have in many areas around the world, but even in Africa we see some drought conditions, and we continue to see this plume of dust in the atmosphere, and that inhibits tropical development. Even though the water is warm and the wind shear is fairly low, this dust is very, very dry. You need that warm, moist air to get the development of a tropical system, and we just haven't seen that. So that's really been inhibiting every single one of these waves as they come off the coast of Africa. They expect the moisture from the warm, moist water, or from the water below it, and we're just not seeing that development with these tropical systems. That could change here over the next several weeks as we get closer to the peak of hurricane season, but right now we still have a lot of dust out there. One thing that is working in favor of tropical development is the wind shear, and we've seen some wind shear fairly strong as we've gone late July through August, but now we're starting to see some of that wind shear lessen just a little bit here through the intertropical convergence zone. We have seen the stronger wind shears just off towards the north. And as we move into the Caribbean, one of the reasons we think that system might have the potential for a little bit of development is because, once again, there is light wind shear, and that's expected for the next several days. Now, looking back so far this hurricane season, we've only had 3 named storms. We haven't even had a hurricane. They've all been tropical storms, and it's very rare to go all the way to Labor Day, which is in early September, and not have at least a hurricane. But so far we've only had 3 tropical named systems. They've all been tropical storms, and even as we mentioned, Colin, just a little bit iffy on that storm. Now, since the satellite era, that's 1960, there have only been 2 years where we have had no named storms in the month of August. That's 1997 and 1961. So if we can get to the end of August, this will be only the 3rd time since 1960 that we haven't had a single named system in the month of August. And prior to that, going back to the 20s, there were 2 other years. So if we might have missed something back in those days when we didn't have the satellites, but at least on record, there have only been 4 years that we haven't had a named system in August, and since 1960, we've had only 2 years. So again, this is very rare. Now, the most consecutive days, number of days season where we haven't had a named system is 61 days, and that was back in 1999, June 19th through August 17th. So we're getting close to that record as well. And then finally, something to remember, the peak of hurricane season is September 10th. 90% of major hurricanes, those are category 3, 4, or 5, after August 20th. So it's very rare to get a major hurricane before August 20th. So we're just starting to really get into the peak of hurricane season, and that runs right into really late August all the way to early October, with the actual peak on September 10th. Now, where do we typically see tropical systems develop in the month of August? Well, first area is here in the Gulf of Mexico, and we see those storms. They can affect areas of Mexico up through southern Texas or all along the Gulf Coast states. The second area is down here in the Caribbean, and it sort of takes the similar path across the Yucatan, across Cuba, or back here into Mexico. And the third area, and it's a broad area, we see that here off the southeast coastline all the way towards the coast of Africa. So again, these are the areas that we typically see that development in the month of August. So we look ahead towards September, very similar when we start to see systems affecting the U.S. East Coast. So we'll, of course, continue to monitor the tropics. Fairly quiet for now, but again, we're just starting to enter the peak of hurricane season.